Most people think Minecraft's end dimension is boring, with just islands of endstone and the dragon fight. But over the years, people have discovered seeds with almost impossibly rare features, from an island with no endstone to the biggest end city ever found. When creating a new Minecraft world, it's theoretically possible for you to spawn inside the end dimension. That's because there's a 1 in a trillion chance for an end portal to naturally generate with all 12 eyes of Ender. But it's also possible for the portal room to be exposed, and there's also a small chance for a ruined portal to generate on top of it as well, removing the stone bricks. Meaning if you manage to spawn in this exact position, then the moment you enter the world, you'll be instantly teleported into the end. Minecraft is full of random possibilities like this. Everything from mob spawning to world generation and even in-game events are all completely random. But in this video, we're taking a look at things that are technically possible within the game, but are too rare to ever happen. Most people know when it rains in Minecraft, there's a small chance for it to turn into a thunderstorm. But during thunderstorms, there's a 1 in 100,000 chance for lightning to strike each chunk in render distance. The game checks for this 20 times per second, meaning it's possible for lightning to constantly strike the ground and kill everything in its path. Feels like the sort of thing you'd see in a horror mod before Herobrine appears. It's also possible for lightning to always strike the block you're standing on, meaning no matter how much you try and escape, you could be hunted down and even spawn killed by lightning. So yeah, there's a slight chance the game can be unplayable. Thank you, Mojang. But this is nothing compared to what else is possible in this game. When shooting an arrow, you'll notice it never lands in the exact same spot, even if you shoot it from the same position. That's because projectiles have a tiny random spread, which is called a Gaussian distribution. So whenever you shoot an arrow, it can technically go in any direction, but it's just more likely to go where you're aiming. As you can see, 68% of arrows will land within 1 degree of where you aim, 95% will stay within 2 degrees, and over 99% of the shots you take will stay within 3 degrees of the angle you shot. But if we look at the limits of what's possible, there's a 1 in 500 million chance of the arrow going 6 degrees away from where you shot it. But believe it or not, there's also an extremely small chance that when you shoot a bow, the arrow gets shot behind you. But this only has a 1 out of 10 to the power of 3,863 chance of happening. That's a 0.3863 zeros 1% chance. We're talking about cosmic levels of possibility here. There hasn't been anything this rare that's ever happened in the history of the universe. And the only proof that it can even happen is from the source code, which was discovered by my friend Hepe. So shout out to him. Just imagine you somehow managed to do this on a server. You'd probably get banned for hacking. Now, something else that's affected by probability are crops. These grow randomly using the game's random tick speed, which is the rate of change that happens in your Minecraft world. So if you're lucky, when you plant crops, there's a chance they'll grow instantly. However, if you're not so lucky, it's possible for them to never grow at all. So the game can either be nice to you or straight up give you a famine. These are already unbelievably rare possibilities, but world generation can get even more abnormal. Every tree in a forest has a 0.2% chance of generating with a beehive. That means you can find an entire forest full of bees, turning this peaceful biome into a very dangerous place if you accidentally hit one. And although this isn't game breaking, I guess you could say it's beyond rare. Alright, that was pretty bad. But another biome that can have something rare is the desert, because we all know cacti usually generate between 1 and 3 blocks tall. However, in rare cases, cacti can stack on top of each other and grow much taller. So it's technically possible for an entire desert to only generate with tall cacti. This just feels very unnatural and even a bit creepy, like there's some sort of strange skyscrapers. But to make it even weirder, dead bushes also generate randomly. So it's possible for lines of dead bushes to go across the entire desert. This world generation is already beyond the scope of anything that can be humanly found, but we can push things even further. Every village generates in an 8x8 chunk radius from the center. However, there's no real limit as to how many houses a village can have, so long as they're all connected to paths. So it's technically possible for a village to have 100 houses, making it feel like a mini city. But there's also a small chance for each house to be a blacksmith, and each blacksmith can have the rarest possible loot, which is a chest with 21 diamonds. So this village would have over 2,000 diamonds in all its chests. I guess we can call this the Federal Reserve, or maybe it's some sort of money laundering operation. Now, how about we take a look at the rarest mobs possible, and we'll start off with this Enderman. We all know that Endermen can pick up and place down grass blocks, but because this is random, it's possible for an Enderman to use those blocks to communicate with you in real life. For example, if I say hello to this Enderman, through sheer possibility, there's a chance the Enderman can actually respond using the grass to write hi back. The odds of this happening would literally break the fabric of space and time, but it's still mathematically possible. And wait, it looks like the Enderman's trying to say something else. Subscribe. Wow, thank you, theoretical Enderman. However, you may know the true rarest mob to be this. A left-handed baby zombie villager jockey with full diamond armor, iron sword, and max enchantments. Some have nicknamed this mob 4.3797E minus 75% because that's the chance for it to spawn. Yes, this is so rare we're using scientific notation to describe the chance of finding it. But in simple terms, it has a 1 out of 163 quadrillion chance of spawning. You could run Minecraft until the end of time and these things will still never happen. However, there's another mob which is nearly impossible to find. In the Nether, Striders have a 1 in 10 chance to stack on top of other Striders. However, in certain versions of the game, there's no limit to the number of Striders that can stack. That means a stack of 3 Striders has a 1 in 100 chance of spawning, and a stack of 4 has a 1 in 1,000. But it's possible to find a stack that goes from lava level all the way to the top of the Nether, which would be a stack of about 50 Striders. This event only has this small chance of happening. Now just imagine this happens with every Strider that spawns. I'm not even gonna try and guess how rare this is, since at this point it's borderline impossible. Speaking of the Nether, you know how you'll sometimes find these big lava lakes? Well, since world generation is random, there's a chance for the entire Nether to be one big lava ocean with no other biomes, meaning you'd have to bridge thousands of blocks to even find a fortress. Yeah, at that point I'd rather just make a new world. Now what if I told you there's a chance you'll never know the real name of the game because there's a 1 in 10,000 chance the title screen says Minecraft instead of Minecraft, meaning if that chance always happened to some kid who didn't know any better, they could go for a long time thinking it's actually called Minecraft, which would lead to some awkward conversations if they brought it up with their friends. It's also possible for something to happen that makes Minecraft impossible to beat. When you kill a blaze, there's a 50% chance for you to get a blaze rod. However, it's possible for every blaze you kill to simply not drop any rods. And even with looting 3, there's only a 91% chance to get a blaze rod. So if you're just really unlucky, there's a chance you're soft locked with no way to beat the game. But even worse than a soft lock, there's a chance for a certain mob to crash your game. If you didn't know, every second baby pandas have a 1 in 300 chance of sneezing. And when they sneeze, they have a 1 in 700 chance of dropping a slime ball. So it's theoretically possible to find a jungle with so many baby pandas that all keep spamming slime balls to eventually crash your game. Oh my PC. We've seen a lot of unlucky things that can happen in Minecraft, but let's take a look at one of the luckiest occurrences possible. Each chunk in desert and swamp biomes has a 1 in 64 chance to generate a fossil. However, each bone from the fossil also has a 10% chance of being replaced with diamonds, meaning you could theoretically find a fossil that's purely made of diamonds. But speaking of diamonds, what's the biggest diamond vein that can exist? Well, according to this YouTuber, it's possible to have up to 53 diamond ore in a single chunk, and that can bridge from one chunk to another, repeating all across the world. And if every fossil in this world was the biggest size possible and made of pure diamonds, it would make a single connected diamond vein of 849.5 trillion diamonds. So I can see where that blacksmith village got their diamonds from. Now let me ask you a question. If you were teleported to the edge of the world border and your friend was teleported to the other side with no communication, no coordinates, and only walking, what's the theoretical chance that you two will ever meet? Well, the Minecraft world's 60 million by 60 million blocks across, meaning it has a surface of 3.6 quadrillion blocks, which is over 7 times bigger than Earth. If you both had a render distance of 12, it would take tens of millions of years of randomly walking to even get within render distance of each other. But factoring in the mountains, forests, and caves, it could take hundreds of millions of years to actually meet. Not to mention the Nether, which has even more space. So what you'd want to do is go to a stronghold and wait for the other person in the end dimension, because that's the only place you'll ever find them. But speaking of the end dimension, every end island generates with a random amount of endstone, with the smallest islands have, for example, on this seed, 2 small islands generated together, creating a 22 block tall island, which looks strange, but the biggest stack possible is the one on this seed, which has 4 small islands right on top of each other, creating this rare one-of-a-kind endstone pillar, which is 26 blocks tall. But the fact that this is located over 25 million blocks away means that no sane player would ever try and find this. Every end island generates with a random amount of endstone, with the smallest islands having no endstone, and the biggest known ones having millions of blocks. But believe it or not, according to the game's code, there's no limit to how big an end island can be, meaning it's theoretically possible for an end island to be so big it covers the entire 1,000 block gap between the main island and the outer islands. This looks like a super flat world of endstone, and no chorus fruit can even grow here, making it look completely different from anywhere else in the game. Now at the center of the end island, we all know there are 10 pillars that always spawn around the exit portal. These pillars are randomly generated, with the tallest possible reaching Y level 103. However, the smallest pillars only go up to Y76. That means it's possible for all the end pillars to be the exact same height and all be the smallest, making this the easiest dragon fight ever.